Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Salam alaikum. So yeah, that was a nice introduction. I'll explain to you, I'll tell you a little bit about my journey as a graphic designer and about my investigation, which is Arabish or Arabish. In 2006, I had this design studio, and sorry, this was really messy studio that we had. We were a team of 6 people back then, and it was really messy. But anyway, so we moved to a new office, and like everything that changes, we grew and we developed ourselves, and our studio became more specialized in what we do. I'll tell you what we do. This was, and then I'm not going to show you the older logo because it was really bad, but this is the newer one. And we, just like everywhere, you in this part of the world, you would always have Arabic and English identities. So I started by designing the Arabic identity of Fikra. And I didn't want to have a lot of, philosophy, extreme, like, oh, the dot means this and that. I just, it was the design studio, and what I really wanted to do was to use geometric shapes to convey that. So I started by drawing circles, and actually when I was designing the logo, I was actually designing the furniture as well of the studio itself, the newer space. And it was based on circular shapes, based on geometry. So when I did this, I was trying it's really hard to find a typeface that would actually match it, but I couldn't. So what I did was I decided to start to design my own typeface, the Latin typeface. I started with that. Well, I designed the Arabic word mark, which is Fikra, and then started to experiment and play around with Latin letters, alphabet. And this is how the Latin looks like. A pair of socks, rota. Okay, well, never mind. And then I created another one, the Arabic version of it. And like everywhere, you would always have the Arabic and English together, especially in this part of the world. Arabic is always either on top of the English or side by side. And in this one, what I really wanted to do was to create something that would look similar. The Arabic and the English would actually look similar as one, unified. And so this is the final identity. And at Fikra, we became specialized in and known for creating bilingual identities, typography, word marks specifically. So we got a lot of jobs let me tell you, actually, when I graduated in 2005, I did multimedia design, and I wanted to play around. I really didn't know what I really wanted to do, so I played around started doing motion graphics and things like that, but then ended up getting a lot of jobs in branding, and then started getting a little bit better, started working freelance at a few places, and got to know a typographer who taught me the typography, Arabic typography, and then I went by myself. But what happened was, naturally, with branding in the UAE, you would always need Arabic and English to be together, designed together. So it became a natural thing that we started doing that, and we became pretty known for the bilingual identities that we create. So this was a pattern, and I'll show you some of the work that we've done. Damania is a fashion brand, and it's by Ahmed Abdurrahman, protege of Michel Lamy and Rick Owens. And they've asked me he's from the UAE, and then he's based in Paris now. And he's asked me to create an identity for Damania, which is 8 in Arabic. So I started playing around and I asked him why Damania, and he said because of the Islamic star, but then I realized later it was because he is the 8th child as well. But anyway, so I was like, okay, let me play around with the star. And so I took the shape and the inside shape. See if this works. The inside shape, and then extruded it, and then twisted it, and just playing around with that idea, and then started putting it in 3D and see, how does that shape actually looks like, and twisted from the center. And then, of course, I started simplifying it and see if that worked. and if it created, it created this geometric three-dimensional shape in the center, and this was the logo that just as a sketch. And he said, no, this is nothing to do with my vision of the brand. And part of designing, you would, one of the things that I would do is that, yes, I would get a brief from the client, but a lot of the times when you start designing something and you give the client a solution, you realize, you learn more about the client. You realize that your solution is completely off and what you understood is completely off. So for me, what I try to do is the process of working, designing something, I try to create completely different designs to see what the client wants, and then try to understand that better and try to understand what the client wants. So this is a complete different direction, and to see whether that's what the client wanted or not. So with this, I started playing around with just shapes, and I took that same shape, I printed it out on a piece of paper, and I started cutting it, and I started twisting it, and to see if I could twist it very much so I could create the number 8 out of it. And so this is something that I came up with, and started playing around with that. And then more shapes came up. But then the client was like, no, this is definitely what I didn't want. So what I did was, I was like, maybe something simpler would be better. But I wasn't sure. I was really confused by that time, because he was saying, yeah, I want it to be Gothic, I want it to be, and I just wasn't sure what he meant, and there was just so many back and forth. So what I did was, these are some of the options of the number 8s that I gave him, but I printed a huge sheet of paper and with a lot of different number 8s, different styles. And so he's like, yeah, I like that one in the bottom right. Well, it's not now, it's in the bottom right, but it was somewhere in the middle. So this was actually derived from a Germanic, so it's German Gothic, I think it was called. And he liked it, and I thought, if this works, then let me try to take that and try to just simplify it and just change a little bit of the shape. And then I started changing the counter shapes inside, and technical. But when designing this, one of the other things that he wanted was to actually create the word mark in English and in Arabic. So this was developed he's like, yes, I like. There are so many different options. But it's like, yeah, I like this one. This is exactly what I had envisioned for the Latin. And for the Arabic, he actually sent me this and said, okay, I want exactly that for Arabic. So anyway, I didn't really do it exactly like that, but it ended up being this. He actually went to a calligrapher and was like, yeah, I want this. I know what I want. I'm like, okay. And this is a different application, on a form. And this is on a garment. What was actually really funny was that I was just in Barney's, New York, and I was walking there, and I see Damania, the logo, and I was like, yes, I've become international. But it was pretty cool. It was a nice experience. And another solution was for Muntaj, which is a general trading company. This was an Arabic version of Barmino, which is the Latin typeface there. And so I wanted to create something that would actually match as well, different application. And then Tashkil, which is an art hub in Dubai. But this was a particularly one of my favorite projects. And the reason is because when I was briefed on this project, I was asked to design a word mark, both English and Arabic, that would be read as one. So I was like, wait, how can we do that? And so this whole thing came about where it's hybrid, it's both together, English and Arabic. And so back and forth. This was the final one, Tashkil, and the idea was to have it read simultaneously, both the English and the Arabic, and especially for speakers who read both English and Arabic, they'll be able to read both of them together. This was the application, and this is the signage. And they just recently made a skateboard, like a skating, what is it called? A skating thing, with actually the word tashkil. So you find tashkil, a huge tashkil in Arabic, and it's the actual skateboard thing. But this was an interesting project because of that hybrid thing. And so another experience was that I was moving. I went to RISD. I went to Rhode Island School of Design to get my MFA in graphic design, and this was a transition for me. It made me realize like other things. This is Dubai in 1990 and Dubai now in 2005, and how it's changed dramatically within just 15 years. So I wanted to document. The actual landscape, the urban landscape of the UAE. So one of the projects that I did was, and here came my investigation, because I was investigating what does that mean, the hybridity? What does it mean for me, creating those identities that are hybrid? But also I moved to America, and also I went to an American school. I went to the American University in Sharjah in the UAE. But I realized that when I moved to America, it was very similar to the way I was brought up, in a way. And there was this, not really, but you know what I mean? Like there's that culture, there's that familiarity with the culture, with the Western culture. So I wanted to investigate that. What does it mean? So one of the things that I did was I used Google Earth, and I created this script where it would take different areas in the UAE, and it will show you before and after. So this is Reem Island in Abu Dhabi, 2004 and 2009, and how the urban landscape just dramatically changed. This is Mirdif neighborhood of Dubai, 2004, or sorry, 3. There we go. Like everything that changes, I also was in transition. So, I going to RISD, and Arabi to Alqassimi. Arabi to Alqassimi is simply as adding a dot. And this was sort of what I was feeling as well at the same time. And part of my experience, yes, being there, but I was taken out of context. So I was not in the UAE, and I was looking at my culture as an outsider now. So because I was living in America, I was looking at my culture as an outsider. But also it was good because I was teaching. I was making my culture familiar to all the people who live in America. So it was an educational thing where I had to make very obvious what my culture is. And to my teachers, I had to introduce. No one knew anything about where I come from. No one knew anything about my culture. They thought we just ride camels to school or something. I don't know. But so it was a learning process for me and a teaching as well for my teachers. So what I wanted to create was an expression, a collective expression of what it means, what the UAE identity is, or as an Emirati from the UAE. I don't want to, because I had my own ideas as well, but I was like, let me try to see what is everyone else thinking. What is their idea of the UAE, about the UAE culture, about the UAE identity. So I wanted to create a collective expression. So what I did was I invited 5 different artists and designers based in the UAE, and I had an interview with them. So I just spoke to them for a few hours, on Skype, and I was like, all right, tell me more. What do you think? And I asked them a few questions about the UAE, and then I asked them to create an artwork. So each of those 5 artists or designers would create one artwork based on the interview and the conversations that we had. It wasn't an interview, it was more of a conversation. And then that would be then rotated around. So so let's say artist A and B. Artist A would create an artwork, would give it to B, and then artist B would take the artist A's work, vice versa. You get an exquisite corpse in a way. So the first one was between Latifa bint Maktoum and Diana Hawatmeh. So Latifa's image on the UAE UAE identity, and it's sort of like witnessing change, I think she said. And when I gave it to Diana added another layer to it, which read ليس التغيير جيدا, and it's sort of like a question: isn't change good? And then it says هو مجرد نمط من أنماط الحياة, or like it's a routine of life. And then Diana Hawatma and Khalid. So Diana created this Islamic star in a way, and changed the patterns inside. And what she was saying when she was explaining this to me, she said, you've got the overall shape. You've got the shape, which is the culture, overall culture. But what's inside is the thing that makes up the overall picture. And that thing inside just keeps changing. And it says, قابل للتغيير. So it's, right? It says قابل للتغيير. Yeah. And so this Khalid Xena took this picture, and his style is very pop art, very, very much like influenced by pop art and contemporary culture. So this was his iteration of it. And then Khalid Xena and Lamia Gargash. So this was Khalid's work, and I can't remember what it was called. And then Khalid Xena, Lamia Gargash took it, and this was her iteration to it. And, each artist would have something to say, and each artist would this is more documented in the pamphlet at the end. And then Sheikha bin Bahar and Latifa bint Maktoum. Sheikha did this, التغيير واقع لا بد منه, change is inevitable. And Latifa's iteration was this. Just very, very different iterations. And then Lamia Gargash as well created this. She wrote hi at the end. So Sheikha answered saying why. But anyway, so this was all documented in a book, and it says Ta'abir is a collective expression by a group of artists and designers based in the UAE on what constitutes the Emirati identity and its cultural landscape. The collaborators were first interviewed, then invited to create an artwork inspired by the conversation. The artworks were then rotated around to other participants to edit and add upon, creating an exquisite corpse effect. And I'll show you just like different spreads from the pamphlet. So this was the email where I asked them, told them about the project, and these are just and then these are the interviews or the conversations that we had. And some of them were for hours, and they were recorded, and then I had to put them in. And I tried my best not to remove anything, so it was all documented in this pamphlet. It was pretty cool. And then another thing that I wanted to do was to understand who I am in America. So, as an Emirati in a foreign space, and I was the only Arab that was in the school. I think later on I figured there were other Arabs, but back then I had no other friends. Everyone was Western, and so for me it was very much like so this is how we dance in our culture, and this is what we do. These are the perfumes, these are the dukhun, like very different things, elements of our culture, and again trying to educate, but also who am I? Who am I there in that setting? And I'm an Arab, I'm a Muslim, and being in a culture that's completely different than mine, but yet familiar. So I was trying to investigate that. So what I did was I created a sculpture of the word Muslim, and the reason is the word Muslim itself was because many people don't understand what Islam is or being a Muslim is. What it is associated with. So a lot of the questions that I would ask people, what is Muslim? This was before doing the project. And a lot of people, I would ask them, what is the first image that you get about, when I say Muslim? Like, I don't know, towel head or, just different camels, just very, very unfamiliar ideas, are very stereotypical. So what I wanted to do was to educate people on what it is to be a Muslim, what it means. So what I did was I took I built that sculpture, and I took it with me into the streets of Providence. And I just talked to people randomly, and I was like, hi, do you guys know what this is? And it was, I was inspired by this this dude who had this kiosk, and it says ask an Iraqi, I think, and he went to like different places in America, and he basically people would just come to him and ask him questions. They're like, oh, what does it mean? And so they ask me any question about being an Iraqi in Iraq. So I thought, maybe that's a good way to start a conversation, a good way to see, for people to learn as well about my culture. And it was pretty cool. I got, no one was able to read what I had. Some people thought, it was a prank. Some people thought, I don't know. This person actually was able to read it. He's like, oh, Muslim, tell me, why are you doing this project? So I said, I was doing it to try to discover and find out what people know and what not. And one of the questions that I asked, or one of the things that I said was that, that if you look up the word Muslim in an Arabic dictionary, you can't find it. You have to revert it back to its source, which is Salem, which stands for submission, commitment, surrender, etc. So they're like, oh, wow, okay, we didn't know that. And then I would ask them a question where I'm trying to be more direct. I'd be like, okay, can you hold this? Can I take a picture of you? Some people would be like, no. And some people would be like, yeah, sure, if you're in it, and some people were like, and then I would ask them, can you walk? Are you comfortable walking around with this? Like, no, what if it says something something that is not Muslim? What if it's, what if I was associated with something else? And, you get really different responses, like her, She actually, at the beginning, she said, oh, it looks like, is this, because Providence, Rhode Island was, it's by the sea, so it says, she was like, oh, is that waves that represent Rhode Island, Providence? I'm like, no, it says Muslim. And then she's like, is that some kind of propaganda that's going to be on CNN or something? Anyway, so it was a pretty cool project. And then I documented my findings in a poster, and, all those people who were, either surprised or happy to pause, and etc. Actually, a funny story. So there's this place in Providence called Kennedy Plaza, and it's where the buses go, but it's kind of shady. It's not like, you wouldn't go there in the middle of the night. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to walk there with the word Muslim. So I walk there, and this dude, like, is huge and scary looking. I was like, hey, excuse me, what is that you're holding? And I was like, this artwork, And he's like, no, what does it say? And I was like, it says Muslim. He's like, Salam alaikum, brother. I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. So then, so yes, that was a pretty cool project that I went into the streets and tried to educate people. But also I wanted to document, to create these series of the images where it would talk about, it would show me a familiar, for us here, a familiar thing in a foreign space. And there, it's a foreign element in a familiar space. And this is me. These are some of the places that I used to walk to get to university. And it was really interesting to hear what people would say when they see these images. Some of the people didn't know what I did when I was talking to people, etc. They would see this and they would be like, oh, what is that? What does that say? And then start making connections, and they had very different points of views as well, which was very interesting for me to hear. And I just want to also say this before going further, is that most of my work is not final. It's very experimental. A lot of it is trying to understand. A lot of it is research. A lot of it is an investigation. And as a whole, all of these investigations are part of understanding something, which is then documented. And it's going to be, when it's documented, as a whole, it's a collective expression of my thoughts, my investigations. And then, the thobe, the dress. This is my grandfather, by the way, and this is how he used to dress like. And now you can see how the modern contemporary culture is becoming more Western and more comfortable, and it's a hybrid. It has become a hybrid. And remember Damania? So this is Damania, and this is his Western take on it. And actually, he's selling kandoras or thobes in Barney's, New York. Pretty cool. And then there's, of course, this is how women in the UAE used to dress like, and this is the abaya in a way. Like it's become, I'm just trying to show like very different modern accessories. So I created two different posters that is documenting that in a way. So it's, you know, it's before, this is what my mom used to wear, and this is now, and how the UAE culture is becoming this hybrid. And you can see, I mean, this is within just, what, one generation? And you can see how crazy this is, you know, just that change that happened dramatically. It's a really fast change. So after this, I wanted to create a study. It was also a very, very experimental study. And what I did was I scanned in a Kandora and a jeans and shirt into a tabloid-sized scanner. And I overlaid them on top of each other, and then I started adding and removing layers that represent the cultural transformation taking place. So this one says Arabi, which, you know, the Kandora or the thobe has the most real estate in the image. And then this one says Western, where there's very, very little influence of Arabic culture on it. And this is almost a hybrid, which in a way you can't read whether it was Western or Arabi, or what is it? You know, it's a hybrid. And this is sort of where we are, or at least I am, you know, I feel where my culture is, where I am personally in my own, or where my identity is, or where it falls. And I can, you know, I can safely say that I think this is the mainstream UAE culture, the mainstream Emirati culture, and this is what it is. It's a hybrid. No matter how little or more the Western influence is on it, I think it's a hybrid. I think there's so many things, and a lot of us, and it's very, very similar to here, Kuwait as well. So I found later on that there was another Emirati at RISD, and he was a freshman doing film and animation. So I invited him over. His name is Muhammad. I was like, Muhammad, can you come over? But before actually saying that, let me show you. And of course, I think a lot of you are familiar with this. You know how we use different layers. Sorry, there's a font there. But anyway, this is how there are letters when we write in Arabish, which is English writing with Arabic talking, and then the hamza is the number 2, which is the stop. And then the 3 is a ain, the 5 is a kha, different pronunciation. So it says, I'm presenting al-hin, bas uqub barad al-bayt, I'll sleep, you know, like, and this is how we write it. So anyway, so I invited Muhammad over, and I was like, Muhammad, I just want to record a conversation that we're having together. He's like, okay, what is it for? I'm like, I won't tell you, let's just talk. And so he came over, and this is an excerpt from it.
إن شاء الله في شهر ديسمبر أويل من ويلز يعني 1800s. It's يعني هو كلاس صراحة يعني you learn a lot يعني بصراحة it's very crazy يعني.
مو متأكد. But he is مصري he is some best اليوم we were talking about him in class يعني شو هذا. But he did not answer questions directly. لا هو ولا الثاني.
Younger مثل ما تقول persons بس يعني على قد خبرته.
بس تعرف يعني one of the things that شو اسمه ما كان it wasn't a dialogue, it was more of a question answer.
صح.
But يعني ما في حوار. بس بعد it's other than that, it's a cultural thing.
يعني مثل ما تقول hard, very fundamental questions يعني أسئلة تقول that takes you back right to the beginning. يعني it was like a very different first impression for that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is how we speak. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. So you know, because Arabish, I felt Arabish. So I wanted to document where Arabish was coming from and where the word was coined, and when it was first used and where did it become popular. It became popular on the Kuwait channel and IRC, so you guys know. and then 90s. So I actually went back to Kuwait Channel on IRC, and I got to know this girl who was, luckily, بالصدفة, she teaches or does something with linguistic. I have the chat documented somewhere. Anyway, so Arabish actually started because of technological drawbacks. Greek, Persian, Japanese, Chinese, all of them used this way of writing, using English and then replacing letters for letters that don't exist in English. You replace it using numbers. Is that clear? In a way? So like the Arabish. And the reason that was happening was because there was ASCII, which is the American Standard Code of Information Interchange. That was the only language you were able to use on computers. And that was English. So whatever other language, you needed to replace all the phonetics with Latin graphemes. So they used numbers for non-existent pronunciations. So I thought, since it started, and then when Unicode devices came in, all the other languages like Japanese, Greek, Chinese, all those started adapting and using their own language, except Arabic. I mean, yes, we use a lot of Arabic, but the mainstream is using the hybrid, the Arabish. I'm not going to say whether it's good or bad. It's a different thing. But so I thought of creating this project where I would create the Latin graphemes, and I would create the Arabic letters, equivalent Arabic letters, and I wrote a script on this 3D software where the computer automatically merges together the characters. And the reason is because it started because of technological drawbacks. I was like, let me see what the computer can create, visually. And so this is what came up. And again, this was very experimental. So, I was like, let me see what happens if those letters were actually placed in the city. But then I placed it in the city, and then the music didn't sound right. So I was like, let me try to mix Arabic with English electronic and Arabic oud, and this is what happened. So after that happened, I was thinking, okay, what else? And so I was walking to the mosque there in Providence, and I was like, mosque. And that was one of the things where how our culture is very hybrid again. And so I was thinking about Arabish and how signage is very bilingual. And an example would be, for example, IKEA. You can see Arabic and English, and how the Arabic was actually created for the English. And of course you can see Starbucks and how the Starbucks, the Arabic, looks like the English. And Mac, again. It's always, the Arabic always looks like the English. These are just different examples. And then I saw this, and I was like, wow, this is a really good solution. But anyway, it's always the Arabic always looks like the English. So I was thinking, what will happen if it was the other way around? How can I find, and why would I do it the other way around anyway? So I found, I was walking to the mosque again, and I was like, what better than the Islamic community there? Because they're either Westerners or people who don't necessarily know Arabic, but they learn Arabic for either prayer or... So it was almost Arabish, but the other way around. Not the Arabic looking like the English, not the Arabic mimicking or imitating the English, but rather the English looking like the Arabic, the English becoming more Arabized, I guess. So this was the Islamic Center of Rodan, and I decided to, it wasn't branded, so I went inside and I saw the imam and I was like, all right, hi, how are you? Do you think it's fine to create a brand for this? I wanted to learn more actually about it and about the mosques there, and what I found out was that there were actually 6 mosques in Rodan, and then all 6 mosques work together, and they have those like very different community events and things like that. They don't advertise. It'll be really good to know what the Islamic community is actually doing for Providence and Rodan. They're not only working with Muslims, but they're helping students. They're just doing a lot of different events for the community, for Rodan. So I started sketching. This is just one of the first initial sketches, and this is later on. How the Latin looks like. And here, the Arabic is not super Arabic, but the English is not super English as well. But I'm trying to create a hybrid. And the Latin was, the secondary font was actually Helvetica New. I didn't create it. It was just a secondary font. And these are the 6 different mosques in Rodan. So I color-coded them and created this Masjid al-Islam. This one, Kareem. Rahman, Razzaq, Zumurat al-Jannah, Markaz Da'wa al-Muslimun al-Amerikiyun. Anyway, so I created this and then created just as a branding project, brand exclusion zones, logo reductions, brand typography, etc. But also, I started getting bored with this project, and because I did a lot of branding, and I'm like, I want to stop doing branding. But I was like, all right, what does this mean? What can I do to change, to create an impact, to do something? And what I realized was that the actual space itself the mosque itself was in front of a school, and it looked really scary. Not a lot of people would walk there, and the students. The kids wouldn't walk there. So I wanted to create a welcoming space. So I wanted to transform this into this, just to make it like a less intimidating place, but rather more friendly, and create cool signage. But also, the idea of a courtyard. What does having a courtyard? And so I wanted to create on the rooftop. I wanted to create this sitting area where kids are going to come and learn more about the Islamic community, what they do. But I created furniture out of type, and the type was actually the 5 pillars of Islam in English and in Arabic. So these are just different, and they're made into furniture, and the furniture is placed on the rooftop. And then kids are going to be able to come and just chill there and play around with that. And then like there's 2 gentlemen there creating the word, the salah, just very experimental as well. But that I felt like this is one thing to do for you to be able to bring in a community to learn more about our culture, etc. And then after I graduated, I came back. Actually, before coming back, there was a workshop with Stephen Shore, who's an American photographer, and he selected me as one of the other people, amongst 10 other photographers, to create a project with him. And so he invited me to his place in New York on the Upper East Side, and he said, I told him, I'm very interested in this. I'm still talking about this issue about Arabish. I'm still trying to find what my identity is like, what the mainstream UAE culture is all about, and And so I really feel that the next work that I'm going to do, and the photography work with Stephen Shore, is going to be a continuation about my thinking. So I created this project. So I'm trying to, I knew I had a visual in my head of typography in the city, just like very similar to Muslim. But I wasn't sure what the words are. And then finally, and because also that was a time when I made the decision to be based in UAE and in New York half-time. And so I was creating those words, and the words are here and there, and huna and hunak. And what was interesting about this was that here, adding one letter to it becomes there. And huna, you add one letter to it, becomes hunak. And so what I did was I created a series of images where I created huna. The Arabic would be, this is in the UAE. And I'm wearing kandora. And then placing hunak, and then wearing Western clothes. So it's like moving, like traveling, being in another space. And here in New York. Here in New York. I mean, not here, but there. And then there, wearing my traditional clothes. And the way they were placed in the gallery space was that you've got the first image, and then you've got the second, which is the first one is an image of the word by itself, and then the second one is like a journey, me taking the word, and then the third one is reaching a point. I'm not sure I've reached that point. I don't think I'll ever, but it's sort of that thing where I'm traveling from the UAE to New York. I've reached, but then it's always constantly in motion. And this is the Latin. The English version. But when it was exhibited in the exhibition hall, it's actually the English was the Arabic was in the east, and then the English was in the west. So that you would be looking at the work, and you'd be in the middle. You're in that place between the east and the west. You're looking at both. You're in the middle. So, what my thesis investigation was. It's about hybrid. It's about hybridity. It was about the mainstream culture, that we have. It was an investigation on urban landscape, an investigation on language, an investigation on dress, and what it means to us. I've been asked a lot, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. I think if a culture is constant, and of course I've been reading a lot of books while I was doing this thesis thinking, and one of the things, if a culture is constant and if a culture doesn't change, that's bad because the culture is not developing, but we're developing, we're changing. And I think change is inevitable, and I think change is good. A lot of people have been, and one of the things that I have been doing actually before going to RISD, before getting my MFA, before this research, I was thinking that we're losing our identity. Now I don't think so. Now I think that we're actually not losing our identity. We're actually creating a new identity for ourselves. And I presented this when I was doing my thesis, and a woman came to me and she said, Salem, I really enjoyed your presentation, but one of the things that I would like to say to you is that I now understand your culture a lot more. I'm now familiar with it, and for me, I think that I did something right. I educated myself. It was an investigation for myself, but also I educated others. And especially being in America, it was a really nice journey for me and for others to be part of that journey, and for me to share that journey. And she said to me, "And now you bridged the culture." And so, I think I did. And everything, all of that is documented in a book, which hopefully will be published soon. I'm not sure yet. It's called Arabish. Thank you.
Thank you.